He walked into the room, calm but determined, unaware of the eyes that judged him before he even spoke. The billionaire glanced down at him, a sneer hidden behind a polished smile, and said words that cut deeper than any insult. He didn't shake hands with staff. In that instant, the weight of centuries of bias and disrespect pressed on him, but he didn't flinch. What happened in the next 5 minutes would shock everyone in the room and reveal a truth about power, race, and courage that most people never see. How far can one man push back against the system and win? Before that fateful day, Marcus lived a life defined by quiet determination. He was sharp, ambitious, and respected in his field, yet he had learned early that the world often measured him by the color of his skin rather than his talent. His mornings were filled with calls and meetings, his evenings with plans for the future he refused to let anyone steal. He moved through life with purpose, always careful, always prepared, but nothing could have prepared him for what awaited in a boardroom full of power and wealth. That one handshake, or the refusal of it, would become the spark that exposed a harsh reality he had long navigated, testing everything he believed about fairness, respect, and strength. Marcus stepped into the sleek boardroom, every inch polished, every surface gleaming with quiet authority. Executives were gathered, papers shuffled, voices murmured, yet all eyes fell on him with something unspoken, a subtle weight that made his chest tighten. He extended his hand in greeting to the billionaire, expecting the standard formality that had carried him through hundreds of meetings. Instead, the billionaire recoiled, a dismissive smirk dancing across his face, and declared, "I don't shake hands with staff." For a moment, Marcus froze, the words echoing louder than the room itself. A cold flush spread across his body, not just humiliation, but recognition of a deeper, systemic disdain. Every eye in the room shifted, some feigning neutrality, others betraying amusement at a man who dared to occupy a space they never expected him to command. The meeting had begun, but Marcus's mind raced faster than the conversation unfolding. Each exchange of numbers, each presentation slide, each question thrown at him felt like a test, a gauntlet carefully designed to remind him of his place. Yet Marcus had come prepared. He knew their strategies, anticipated the subtle attempts to undermine him, and countered each one with quiet precision. Still, the tension was palpable. The billionaire's gaze cut through him repeatedly, a silent challenge that seemed to ask, "Do you belong here?" Marcus could feel the stares of his colleagues, the unspoken judgment hanging heavy in the air. He had navigated prejudice before, but this was different. Calculated, public, and suffocatingly blatant. Minutes stretched like hours. Every small victory Marcus earned was met with subtle rebuffs, every accomplishment weighed against centuries of bias. And then came the moment no one expected. A proposal Marcus had painstakingly crafted, the culmination of weeks of research and negotiation, began to take shape before the group. Eyes widened, whispers grew louder, but the billionaire maintained a stoic mask, unwilling to give the satisfaction of acknowledgement. Marcus knew he had to push harder, to assert not just his competence but his right to be recognized, even in the face of deliberate disregard. The tension built to a near-breaking point. Numbers were crunched, charts presented, arguments dissected. The room was silent, every member acutely aware of the stakes. Yet none could predict what Marcus would do next. And just when it seemed the humiliation might tip into failure, the unexpected happened. A shift so subtle yet so profound, it changed the energy in the room entirely. The billionaire, the very man who had dismissed him seconds before, was forced to confront the undeniable. Marcus wasn't just a participant in this room, he was a force, a reminder that merit could not be ignored, no matter the prejudice lingering in the shadows. But would it be enough? Would the walls built by decades of bias crumble under the weight of one man's perseverance, or would the system fight back one last time? The room fell into an almost unbearable silence. Marcus laid out the final figures, the deal he had meticulously crafted, numbers so precise, insights so sharp, that they left no room for doubt. Yet the billionaire sat back, eyes cold, refusing to acknowledge the brilliance in front of him. The tension was electric, almost suffocating. Every heartbeat felt amplified, every breath a test of endurance. Marcus could feel the weight of history pressing down, the unspoken legacy of doors closed, opportunities denied, moments stolen simply because of the color of his skin. The air was thick with judgment and expectation, 1,000 microaggressions culminating into a single heavy moment that threatened to crush his resolve. He had anticipated bias, braced for dismissal, but nothing could truly prepare him for the sheer force of it all converging at once. Then came the pivotal instant. The billionaire, in a calculated move meant to undermine him, challenged the proposal outright, scoffing at the numbers, questioning the strategy in front of the entire room. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the attendees. Marcus felt a surge of heat, anger, frustration, and determination all colliding. Every fiber of his being screamed for him to back down, to avoid confrontation, to remain unseen. But he didn't. With unwavering calm, Marcus responded, not with aggression, but with undeniable evidence, logic so precise it was impossible to refute. Each point landed like a hammer, shaking the room, piercing through the walls of bias. Eyes widened, whispers turned into acknowledgement, and the billionaire's composure began to crack. Marcus could see it. The realization that talent, skill, and perseverance could not be denied, even when the system itself tried to suppress it. And then, in that charged moment, the deal shifted. The room seemed to hold its breath. Marcus had not just fought for a business outcome. He had forced recognition, respect, and a reckoning with the prejudice that had lingered like an invisible chain. But would it be enough to break through years of systemic injustice? Or was this only the beginning of the battle? The room finally exhaled, though the weight of what had just transpired lingered like a storm cloud. Marcus had secured the deal, $6 billion in support, but the victory was more than numbers. It was a statement, a quiet but undeniable proof that talent and determination could confront prejudice head-on, even in spaces built to exclude him. Yet as he stepped out of the boardroom, the echo of the billionaire's earlier dismissal still burned, a reminder that the fight wasn't over. It was only evolving. For Marcus, the moment was transformative. It wasn't just about business success. It was about reclaiming dignity, asserting presence, and challenging the invisible barriers that countless others faced daily. Each handshake he had been denied, every subtle look of doubt, every whispered assumption about his worth, all of it culminated in a moment that exposed the harsh reality of racial bias in high-stakes environments. But beyond the personal triumph, Marcus's experience is a mirror for society. It shows how systems of power can marginalize, undermine, and silence those who deserve recognition. Yet it also reveals the potential for resilience, strategy, and courage to confront injustice, even when the odds feel insurmountable. His story is a reminder that change often begins with a single act of defiance, a single refusal to accept what the world tells you about your place. And so the question lingers. How many more doors remain closed? How many more voices unheard, simply because of the color of someone's skin? Marcus's victory was extraordinary, but it also serves as a call to look deeper, to challenge the structures that allow bias to persist and to act when we see injustice. Because if one man's persistence can pull billions from the shadows of prejudice, imagine what a world united against inequality could achieve.